Yes, good evening. My name is Wallace Bradley, and I'm the host of the Bradley Report. This show is presented by United in Peace, Inc. I'm also the president of United in Peace, Inc. and the director of this show, and the individual that helped me find the issues for this show is none other than the chairman of United in Peace, Inc., and that's Terry Marsh Bradley. And I'm so blessed by God that she's my wife. We got a very interesting show today. I know you've heard about this video being released about the guy Dexter that's been shot at so many times. The law enforcement or the police are saying there was over 100 casings. A lot of people in the community saying that he was murdered. A lot of leaders are asking for an independent investigation. And you're going to hear a statement from the mayor about the shooting. A lot of people remember Laquan McDonald, 16 shots, you know what I mean? And the police that was involved in doing the 16 shots end up getting arrested and then indicted and then prosecuted, and then he went to the penitentiary, but he didn't serve enough time, a lot of people say. You had a further turn order. Police said that Laquan should have been shot 20 times, okay? And now we got a new state's attorney coming on board, and people are wondering what's going to happen after Kim is no longer there. And I mentioned to you last week that we was going to show the re-election of the 7th Congressional District Congressman Danny K. Davis. You know what I mean? I want to say congratulations to Supreme Court Justice Joy Cunningham, and congratulations to Eileen Burt, who became the Democratic nominee for the state's attorney. And I want to say congratulations to Congressman of the 7th District, Danny K. Davis. And I want to thank everyone that came out to vote, regardless if your candidate won or not. You did come out to vote. Well, without further ado, to God be the glory. That's Gator's story. Mr. Amani, could you come on with the first piece?
Dina, Chicago's mayor joined with the top administrator for COPA, the Civilian Office of Police Accountability, and Cook County State's Attorney Kim Foxx up on the 5th floor of City Hall, reacting to the release today of the Chicago body cam video of that disturbing police-involved shooting March 21st in Humboldt Park.
We are here to address today's release of a deeply disturbing footage of a shooting on March 21st in Garfield Park. I know this footage is extremely painful and traumatic for many of our city's residents.
As evidence becomes available, including witness statements, camera footage, and forensic analysis, which includes ballistics and DNA testing, our ongoing review and collaboration will continue until a determination of whether the use of force was or was not justified in this case.
Cook County State's Attorney Kim Foxx says the use of deadly force by police is guided by the law and statutes governing the use of force. Reports of more than 90 shots fired at that March 21st traffic stop in Humboldt Park, prompting the scrutiny. Tactical police officers surrounding a car after a traffic stop, delivering orders to the driver to open the door, and that's when gunfire can be heard on this newly released body cam video. 26-year-old Dexter Reed, the driver in that car, said to have suffered multiple bullet wounds. It's not clear at this hour if Reed or someone else in the car opened fire. A Chicago police officer suffering a gunshot to the wrist. The officer expected to make a full recovery. Dexter Reed was pronounced dead at Mount Sinai Hospital. Reed's family pushing for the public release of the body cam video. The Cook County State's Attorney investigators will coordinate with COPA, Fox says, to perform a detailed review of the evidence before determining whether or not the deadly use of force was justified. Both Kim Foxx and Mayor Brandon Johnson asking the public for patience as investigators go through all the evidence. As you heard earlier, Sean Lewis telling us this is a complicated investigation, many body cam videos to be reviewed, so it's going to take some time, and the mayor appealing to the public, asking them to be patient. It's going to take some time. At City Hall, Julian Cruz, WGN News.
I think.
You know, the thing about it, as you saw one of the body cams where they were shooting, you really don't know who shot first. The question becomes, why did they stop him? For what reason did they stop him? And at the same token, I'm not saying that if he shot at them first, they supposed to return fire. But 96 to 100 rounds. And then you heard us say, let me see your hands, but all you're hearing is rapid fire. Was he trying to stick his hands out as they were shooting him? I heard a scream, unlock the door. Then she ran from the car. We saw where he let his window down. But I believe that it may be some more cameras over there, maybe some more videos out there, because one thing for sure, even when you don't see a police camera on the lamppost or somewhere, there's always someone in the community that you never see that may be videoing what they hearing, all them shots. Maybe somebody in the third floor window looking down, you never know. But we do know that the people feel like we ought to have an independent review of it. And we gotta wait to hear what the family said, because hopefully they show them the whole video. But I've been in hearings, or I've been with some families where they were, or they thought they were seeing the whole video, and then come to find out they weren't seeing the whole video. I hope this not the same situation. I want to hear what the mayor, and I believe you may want to hear, what the mayor is saying about it. Sister Monty, could you play the mayor's statement?
Tanya and Terrell and the mayor calling the footage deeply disturbing, painful, and traumatic. Mayor Brandon Johnson says he spoke to 26-year-old Dexter Reed's family, offering them his condolences. He says he also visited the officer who was shot in the arm the day in the hospital. Now, COPA, the chief administrator, confirming today initial reports appears as though Reed fired shots first, then he fired shots at one officer, 4 officers returned fire, and allegedly fired 96 shots toward Reed in a matter of 41 seconds. That is what Mayor Johnson says was deeply disturbing. Take a listen.
As mayor and as a father raising a family, including 2 black boys on the west side of Chicago, I am personally devastated to see yet another young black man lose his life during an interaction with the police. When someone is shot and killed by police in our city, my administration will lead with transparency. Attempts to withhold or delay information are mistakes of the past, and we have already taken concrete steps to start a full investigation into this case.
The Cook County State's Attorney Kim Fox says they will conduct a thorough review and investigate this incident. Meanwhile, the officers involved have been placed on a 30-day administrative leave. COPA will also investigate this use of force, as well as the incidents leading up to the...
You know, we had an eclipse yesterday, and all eyes was on that, the world's eyes was on that. I understand how the people are very upset whenever police shoot someone or kill someone like that. And I personally feel like we ought to be just as passionate about and actionable, if that's such a word, whenever a child gets shot down, or a woman gets shot down, or a senior gets shot down, or get robbed when 3 or 4 guys jump out of the car. From what I've read, and I'm just going by what I read about Dexter, they try to say he was a hardened criminal. He had a couple of gun arrests. But did you stop him, or did you know that was Dexter in the car, and he may have had gun arrests before? Everyone just trying to figure out, why would you stop him like that? And Chicago rule is you can't go up on a car with your guns drawn. So it's going to be interesting to see what's really happening, and I hope the mayor and the state's attorney and the attorney general and the United States attorney general come together and they all ask for an independent review to see what's really happening, because we know what happened to Laquan McDonald. They tried to get the impression like he was chasing the police officers with a knife to kill them and everything else, and that's why that man emptied his gun and killed him. And the police officers were saying, hey, it was right what he did to the man, and everybody went with the police report, and then come to find out all of that was a lie. So we're going to see, because we want everything to be right. And on another note, the president came to town. But before I get to that, Sister Amani, could you, I want to get off into the Danny Davis situation when he was preparing to fight and run for re-election. And then we're going to come back and show what happened after he won the election.
Well, Rob, things actually they're kind of wrapping up now. There was a lot of celebration earlier because it looks like Danny Davis is on track to represent the 7th Congressional District for a 15th term. He handily defeated his opponents, a reaffirmation of his influence on the West Side, this after nearly being unseated 2 years ago. Earlier this evening, Davis did a victory lap here at his election night watch party in East Garfield Park. His supporters cheering him on, Davis thanking them, the 82-year-old almost striking an indignant tone that his opponents made his age an issue. Davis making the case that his 28 years in Congress is an asset, enabling him to have influence in Washington. But it looked like he would have a tough road to re-election, facing competition from opponents who said it's time for a changing of the guard. Activist Keena Collins campaigning again. She came close to unseating Davis 2 years ago and hoped this time she would have even better name recognition. City Treasurer Melissa Conyers-Ervin also vying for the seat, touting her background in finance and as a working mother. During her campaign, though, she dealt with an ethics probe regarding her firing two employees. In the end, both Conyers-Ervin and Collins trailed far behind Davis.
And so I'm calling this a victory. My last words are, don't ever write off the senior citizens.
We think positive on tonight because people know now that Melissa Conyers-Ervin is a fighter. Melissa Conyers-Ervin don't give up.
You know, I made a lot of commitments and, you know, suggestions to the community about what we could do. We still can do that work without being elected. And I plan on continuing to do that work.
No. All the candidates that ran in that race, it was a spirited race. They had a right to run because they was qualified to run. But I want to show you all the individuals that end up endorsing Danny Davis, from the president to the former Speaker of the House, to the Speaker of Illinois House, to the Senate President from Illinois, to County Board President Tony Preckwinkle, to Congressman Jonathan Jackson, to the governor, a host of others, and all the body of different government came to show the importance of why Danny should be reelected, because he had the seniority. Sister Monty, could you show that piece for me? That's where J.B. Pritzker and
other headlines: President Joe Biden making a quick trip to Chicago today, and he's being met by protesters demanding an end to Israel's attacks on Gaza. The president called for a ceasefire during a phone call with Israel's prime minister last week, but protest groups say the U.S. continues to provide Israel with weaponry. The president in town for a private campaign fundraiser with about 24 people. He was welcomed by city and state officials after landing near Soldier Field. Earlier, President Biden was in Madison, Wisconsin, where he revealed a plan to provide more student debt relief.
Amani, that's when the president came. Show that. Show that one.
For Biden and his supporters.
Good evening. Once again, Chicago is in the national political spotlight, with the president here tonight filling up his campaign coffers and supporters stepping up work on this summer's nominating convention. Today, President Biden touched down in Chicago for a high-dollar fundraiser. The visit comes about 4 months before he returns here to accept the Democratic Party's nomination for another term. At the convention planning headquarters in the West Loop, staff have been welcoming senior Democratic officials. Awesome. Thank you very much. Today, Congressman Stephen Horsford checked on planning and discussed President Biden's new plan to lower or erase student loan debt for more than 30 million Americans.
Why is this important? Because it's the student debt that's keeping people from starting their lives, from buying a home, from starting a business, from starting a family in some cases.
Over the weekend, former President Trump's presidential campaign announced it raised a staggering $50 million at just one Florida event, although the overall GOP effort this cycle trails the Democrats.
The contrast is very clear. The president and the vice president have tremendous support, small dollar donors from all over the country. Meanwhile, the former president, Donald Trump, gets a couple of his billionaire friends together because he promises them more tax cuts. Not for the American people, but for billionaires to not pay their fair share.
Horsford, chair of the Congressional Black Caucus, dismissed polling showing a jump in the level of support among black voters for Trump. There's some polling that shows the former president is doing better among African Americans than in 2020 and 2016. What do you make of that?
Look, first, what I say all the time is I'm going to spend more of my energy focusing on the 80 to 85% of black voters who turn out and who need to understand the consequences of turning out in this election. It's very important on issues like lowering housing costs, on creating more economic opportunity and prosperity, on building wealth, not only for ourselves, but for our children and our children's children.
As Democrats work to spread their message here in Chicago, they may have to contend with protesters angry about Biden foreign policy. Today, this Palestinian-American group wanted to make their voice heard with Mr. Biden in town. The Democratic National Convention Committee is hosting another media walkthrough in late May, and in the coming months, we'll get specifics about street closures and security here in Chicago. Wallace Bradley, WG.
Sister Money, go straight to the one where it says Brandon Johnson needs money from the city council, $70 million.
Chicago has slowed considerably. Only 5 people are currently awaiting placement in shelters, and no buses are expected to arrive this afternoon from the southern border. But today, the Johnson administration began holding closed-door meetings at City Hall to brief alderpersons about a plan to authorize another $70 million to care for the new arrivals. According to Alderman Carlos Ramirez Rosa, who was briefed on the plan, the funds are needed as the city looks ahead to the Democratic National Convention in August.
We've received intel from the border that as we get closer to the DNC, Republicans are going to ramp up the number of buses that they're sending to the city of Chicago to embarrass President Biden and to embarrass the city of Chicago as we host the Democratic National Convention.
According to sources familiar with the plan, most of the money would come from a reserve fund set up for the migrants and the rest from rainy day funds. No other budgets would be reduced so as not to further alienate city council members already concerned about the amount of money being spent on migrants.
We've seen opposition even come from some of the mayor's progressive allies, and so that does complicate the politics.
In January, the mayor had committed to allocating the money in a joint agreement with the state and Cook County, but then backed out of the deal. The governor today appeared encouraged by the mayor's change of heart.
And for those who complain about the expenditure that's being made, let's be clear. First, this is just basic needs that people are getting. Nobody's getting any fancy, luxuries out of this.
Some aldermen still skeptical.
Where are the needs? What are the future needs? And how are we going to utilize these funds, taxpayers' dollars, in the correct way?
The aldermanic briefings will continue for the next couple of days. The mayor's office hoping to win enough support to bring the funding proposal before the full city council for a vote next Wednesday.
One thing I can say, you're damn if you do and you're damn if you don't. What you mean by that, Gator? First off, like the mayor's telling everyone, and those that don't want him to be mayor or was against him being mayor, forget the fact that when he came into office, the migrants were already here. They was also camping out in the police stations, in front of the police stations. But since Brandon has been the mayor, he was able to do what the people wanted. He did all that he could with all that he had to make sure that they were no longer in the police stations. The wonderful thing about it, and I'm glad he was able to talk to the president when he came and he met with President Pretwinkle and Danny Davis, along with the mayor. And the governor has let it be known that he's going to put some money in to help with the migrant situation, and the county board president saying the county going to help with bring the money in. And they had a problem because they thought that the mayor should come on and help bring it in. Well, he has to go back to his legislative body, which is the city council. And it's my understanding that they're going to be having a meeting or a briefing meeting sometime this week in order to have a budget hearing on it for it to come out the budget committee Monday of next week. And then Wednesday, the whole city council would vote on it. Hopefully he got the votes to do what got to be done for the migrants, while at the same time, he's doing also for the residents of the city of Chicago. The homeless. Everybody was mad, but everybody was against voting yes. So I want to say we all responsible for helping what we have to do to make Chicago better. Mayor Johnson doing what he got to do, the county board president doing what she got to do, the governor doing what he has to do, the congressmen doing what they have to do, and the president is going to help them do what they do so they have a righteous, democratic convention. To God be the glory. That's my story.